All right, Ben, good morning.
Well, good morning.
Thanks for joining us 2 Mondays in a row.
Yeah, no problem.
I think the challenge that we had is you had so much great information that I know I had questions for you, more to ask, and some others that were able to join us since. The one part that I felt bad that we didn't get able a chance to talk about, and where I want to start is with your profession, your doctorate level at what you're doing at Georgia. And I think that's so critical and inspiring um, for everyone watching. But that's where I want to start before we getting into more the challenges, your experiences with exercises, being someone diagnosed with autism. So I'm going to let you kind of have the floor, but I just want to again introduce you. For anyone joining us, again, this is Ben Boudreaux, who is in his third year at the University of Georgia, completing his doctorate level and his dissertation in regards to exercise. Ben is someone that is diagnosed on the spectrum since he was in 8th grade, correct, Ben?
Correct.
Correct. And if you haven't, definitely go back to my YouTube channel, which is simply YouTube/C/David Geslack, my full name, and you can see last week's show. So starting off where we kind of left off last week is, again, Ben, so your dissertation, and if I have this correctly, is on the relationship between smartphone screen time and activity level, or the 24-hour activity cycle. And what you're essentially is measuring and analyzing individuals' behaviors. So if you can tell us a little bit more about what you're doing there.
Sure. So pretty much I had an interest of measuring physical activity since actually my master's program. And I've always had an interest, like, when people would wear these devices, I had an interest initially of people would say is, okay, how accurate they are. It's a growing area. Well, then when I came to Georgia, my current advisor advised me on like different ways as research monitoring. You can measure physical activity, sedentary behavior, sleep, different ways with different research monitors. So I also had an interest. I've noticed a lot, and you would see everywhere we go is everyone has their head down on their smartphone.
Mm-hmm.
So I have an interest of wanting to see is, okay, the amount of time you spend per day and how much does it impact your behaviors of going on as your physical activity? Does it, are you limited on the amount of specific intensity you get? Is it you're more sedentary when you're having your phone, or you're walking more? And then how does it impact your sleep?
Hmm. Yeah,
So
because you talked.
go ahead.
Oh, I was going to say, you talked about sleep and how that had an impact. Not only we know that exercise and sleep has an impact on all of us as individuals, but you specifically mentioned that last week in regards to being someone diagnosed on the spectrum. You saw when you were exercising, your sleep was better, right? Got it. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's all right. So pretty much, you can measure physical activity different ways, and even sedentary behaviors. You could use a simple question of saying, okay, on average, how many times per day do you get, do you do a brisk walk? Or how many days per week do you go at a moderate intensity, or specific type things? But then there's other ways you can do is measure physical activity, like we already do with, our
Sure.
wrist devices. But these research monitors, we have developed algorithms so we can classify more and have more accurate information, because usually a consumer wearable, it's a black box. So you don't know certain information. So we have these research developed devices that can actually help us.
So I'm going to stop you there, because if from our previous discussion this morning and getting starting today's conversation, it's my understanding that there's a way not only that I could help you, but people listening to this as finalize in your dissertation, right? If you can explain to everyone, if we download this app to our phone, if that's correct, or your device, that we can then support you and looking at essentially our information, our behaviors, and then that could help you.
Yeah, so basically the app that we're using is Rescue Time. It's compatible for Android and iPhone. Like if you're an iPhone user, you already know. So like every Sunday, you'd get an alert that would say, "Hey, you're on your phone for X hours per day per
Right.
week." So I think people need to become more like the big question is like, okay, it's not just how much time you're doing on the phone, but later on it's going to be like, what are you actually doing on the phone? Because this is actually the next step going forward, because that's going to be impacting people's mental health. And then where do they spend the most time? Is it communicating or is it just watching videos?
Got it. So you performed this dissertation. I can't remember the language, but you'll present on your dissertation and then be approved, and then graduate, and then you are Dr. Ben Boudreaux, correct?
Correct. Yes and no. So right now I'm in the middle of working on my prospectus, is also known as proposal. I have my committee and my advisor. We're working together. Like right now, we're still in the midst of like, okay, we're post COVID. Is like, okay, now how are we gonna analyze, like, start, you know, recruiting students to come in and be part of the study again, because we had to stop initially before the virus occurred. So initially, we're having, like initially for our participants is wear 3 different monitors. You'll download this app. We'll see how you are in a week, and then that's it. We're not trying to change your behavior. We just want to see what is it like. Take a snapshot of what are you actually doing. It's not to make you a better person.
So after you defend, is that the word, defend your dissertation?
Correct.
Okay. So after you graduate, then what's your next steps? Where do you see yourself working? Is it in higher education, in the university level, doing more research? Do you want to go to an organization and exercise, or work at a gym, or what's your next steps? What's on the horizon for you?
So I'd like to look at first is postdoc fellowships, get
Mhm.
more research expertise in my area, and then also maybe later on after a fellowship is do like a University of Georgia, like big research in R1 institution, because I'm more of like favored research over teaching.
Mhm.
And then if say a big dream would be is working in a technology company, behind the scenes on working with all these devices, to help
Got it.
spread the movement. So it just depends whatever is open, because anything can happen until May of 2022.
Got it. Well, we obviously, and I and my team and everyone, wish you the best in your next steps. And but if you're going to focus on research, do it. I think you have a lot to share, and I think you're well spoken and have a lot to share. So as a teacher, I'm sure you can succeed as that as well. I have no doubt. Um, and again, if you are just joining us, Ben was just kind of recapping his research in regards to exercise and behavior change for every individual, not just people on the spectrum. And at the end of this, and when this is saved and recorded on our YouTube channel, on my YouTube channel, I will have the link where we could go download the app, and essentially that can help Ben gather more research as he creates his dissertation and ultimately defends that. So again, look for that at the end of this video on the YouTube channel. All that said, I want to get back to answering or having you answer some questions in where we left off last week. Is that cool, Ben?
Yeah, and I just wanted to clarify is that Well, the app that we'll provide is just for people to monitor their screen time. We're not
Mhm.
using your data. So it's just, this app to help you monitor how much screen time you use. We're not using your data because of, you know, our main focus is going to be in college students.
Got it. So you're saying unless they're a college student listening,
No,
there's
we're recruiting. These are students in University of Georgia that we are recruiting to come in and
got it.
do in person.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Then that was my mistake and my misunderstanding. So we'll still provide that app link, Ben, if that, if you want to do that. But ultimately, you are recruiting college students to be a part of this study or this dissertation, then, correct?
Correct. Yeah, and it's just based out of University of Georgia, and they're based on certain eligibility criteria that we screen for.
Makes
So,
sense. Yeah. Yeah. Well, either way, send us the link. We can post it, but wish there was a way that we could be involved. And hopefully, as we, continue to follow you and your progress and success and what you're doing, yeah, we'd happy to provide and links and anything to your information, or if we can be a part of any of your studies, that'd be awesome.
of course,
So, getting back to where we left off, I have a number of questions, and there was a specific one that I know I shared with you, so we'll answer that too here in a minute. But one of the things that I wanted to remind exercise professionals, to remind parents or special education teachers or anyone in ABA or in the special education world, is that one thing that you mentioned about exercise that it had done for you is that when you were done exercising, that you said the fog was lifted from your head. You said you felt more focused and your sleep behaviors changed. So the question that I have is, you didn't start exercising right away. This was not an easy transition for you. But when you did start, how when did you notice some of these changes in you, whether it was the fog lifted, the more focused, or some sleep improvements? And let me rephrase that, is when you started and seeing those, feeling those or experiencing those benefits, what was the amount of time that you spent exercising? Was it 30 minutes, 60 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes? I think that's going to be crucial for others, researchers, higher ed, parents, or exercise professionals to understand. What was the time frame that you remember of having some of those benefits of exercise?
well, I initially started off in like 30 minutes. I always like told myself just get 30 minutes initially, but I really didn't start recognizing my benefits until maybe about a month or so, or about 6 to 8 weeks. I started developing like, okay, I don't feel as depressed, or I don't feel upset. Like the mental state starts feeling like a little shift. But then I noticed as time went on, like when I started my master's, I was thankful for my old advisor. He started directing me as like, okay, like, start making me aware of who I was, because at that time, until then, I didn't realize who I was as a person more. So he started coaching me and like, okay, start paying attention more, like, other things. I had family members telling me, don't do this, don't do that. But I think he set the framework of when I first started of who I was. But as my stress level, for all of us, tends to get too much, well, I actually started increasing my duration and my intensity during exercise to burn off the stress, because I feel like right now it's like, okay, 30 minutes is not enough. I need to go 40 minutes. And then like today, I swam for an hour and 10 minutes.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
So it's, I think it was a progressive load.
mm-hmm.
And then, a lot of personal trainers would say is, I should not be exercising every day at high intensities. Well, but it works for me.
Right.
So that's what's weird is like, I started noticing a lot during my master's, but I feel like if I would have known myself early on, I could probably be better off in a better career, much more quicker, or there could be different benefits of where I would be.
So I have a couple things for people listening, but I think what Ben is saying, why a personal trainer may say you shouldn't be exercising at a high intensity level for every day, is because your body needs rest, right? The rest, even from the exercise, is just as important, or sometimes even more important than the exercise itself. But also, there's this, um, it's called overtraining. And when you overtrain, again, your body it could become weaker. You could have increased risk of injury. So that's why Ben is saying, why a trainer would tell him not to work out at that high intense level. Ben, one thing that you're saying, and the progression of exercise makes sense to me, and probably does to most people, right? Even parents listening. Okay, they watch these shows or they read things. They say, yeah, the more we exercise, ultimately the idea is the more the better, right? But
Correct.
there's research that we've talked about on this show before, is that came out in 2017 out of Rutgers University, that said 10 minutes of low intensity exercise was able to reduce stereotypical behaviors, specifically echolalia and hand flapping, in those with autism for the next 60 minutes following the activity. And I think that's one of the most powerful studies that I've read, right, in regards to one, to helping those with autism, two, to making it possible, not just for that individual with autism, but for the parent to maybe coach or help them, or three, as you spoke about last week, is about the exercise professional, the APE or the PE teacher, who has no idea of how to support those on the spectrum. But if we can give them or the individual themselves a goal of 10 minutes to start, I think that's really powerful stuff. What's your perspective on that?
I have maybe read the paper when it first came out, but I do like, setting a goal and, maybe showing progression toward the goal, like a visual that, like I'm a visual thinker, like constantly, like, like for instance, the Apple Watch has 3 rings. If I can actually fill those 3 rings, I'm happy. Like, I find that helps. And setting, I think, everyone needs to exercise, like, even if it's 10 minutes or just stand more, like beyond the exercise. Like the one thing I'd be curious is, okay, you had this intervention, you improved their stereotypical behavior, but what's going on beyond that? Like I always say is, you did an exercise intervention. Well, what's their activity beyond that? Are they sitting more? Are they sleeping more? Like this is where the 24-hour paradigm comes in, because you can alternate specific time periods and then it's going to be adjusted differently. So if I exercise for an hour, well, that's an hour off my sleep or my sedentary behavior. So like, maybe adjusting the clock, even if it's, I agree, 10 minutes a good minimum, but find little things like take breaks from sitting, maybe just go walk around, like maybe do an active video game, like the Wii
Right.
system was a popular thing.
Yeah. And no, Ben, your perspective again is so much insight from not only an individual with autism, but as an exercise professional. But as I share these messages to parents and non-exercise professionals, some of the researchers that I've worked with collaboratively or spoken with, they're like, well, you can't just say 10 minutes because then parents or someone's going to think it's only 10 minutes. And I want to make clear that no, we want to get beyond the 10 minutes, because we know of the benefits it can have. But I also want to make clear is if we tell parents or a non-exercise professional or a special ed teacher, hey, you need to find 60 minutes in your child's day or in your own day to make exercise a part of their routine, that's challenging for a parent especially, let alone most. So with this study of 10 minutes, I think there's a lot to be probably learned from, more of a research based on that, like what you're saying after the fact, what's happening later on in their day, what's happening 6 to 8 weeks if they keep that routine up, right? But I want parents to know that it is possible for your kids to exercise through what you just said. I'm a visual learner. The technology, right? That's why we've created this Exercise Buddy app. That's why we have the paper-based products, all those evidence-based practices that help, that many of the way that this community, the autism community, have learned in the classroom, we have embedded, or what you're saying, you are still using. You're using visual supports to help you learn or to help you keep track on your exercise. And that's what I've been saying for years. So to have it verified through your voice, through your research, and through you being a person on the spectrum, I think is, again, why you have so much insight to share, not just for parents, but for the exercise world in general.
All right. Well, thank you. And then, the other thing, I always even tell people, if you're on the spectrum or not, the best way, you can easily get 30 minutes of activity. So, park your car in the back of the parking lot. It takes about 5-10 minutes to come in.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, wait a minute. I want to go out for lunch.
Mm-hmm.
It takes 10 minutes. That's like 20 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, I got to come back to work. Do it again.
Yeah.
You already got 30 minutes. You hit your threshold of 30 minutes of activity per day already.
And Ben, again, just to, I've worked with a lot of parents, I've worked with a lot of individuals. And I think what you just said there, and to speaking to the moms and the dads right now, is, look, yes, maybe you've been in the car for 20 minutes with your kid on the spectrum. And we know that many of the kids, even when they come on the bus or they come off the bus to go to school, sometimes they're in their bus for 45 minutes. They're on sensory overload. So what Ben just said is he put it into the parent perspective of park a little further away. Maybe that's going to give them time, the extra distance to walk, to get them that activity level and calm and give them more sensory integration right before they get into the store. Because what typically happens, right? They go into the store, their kids are on sensory overload, the lights are too bright, there's so much sensory noise coming in, but now you have an opportunity by parking a further distance away from the entrance of that store to maybe help them calm their sensory system, right?
Yep.
So again, just incredible insights, and how you've put that and phrased that could really be helpful to a lot of families. And not only, right, is it helping maybe that child, but it's also helping mom or dad, right? It's giving them a little bit more activity.
Yep.
So Ben, we're almost out of time again.
Yeah.
All right. Hold on, a couple more. Well, let's answer this one question. If you can, it came from, let me find it. It came actually from one of your colleagues.
Students. Maybe.
Yes. And now I got to find it. Oh, here it is. So this question has come from Mark, and he asked, is you guys were working together on research. You were the TA in his measurements class and heavily involved in the projects for that class. So he would like to know about how that experience of working in a supervisory role has affected your growth concerning communication and social skills.
Well, I did send him. I'm making sure. I hope he's taking his exam right now instead of watching me right now because he's got an exam. I did the way I did to him. I sent him a barrel of monkeys yesterday as my answer. Mm-hmm. So pretty much, I think I have the ability to look on both ends of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. So I look at it as you have to be on the bottom. And then like with the, like barrel monkeys, you're putting more on top. Well, initially it was like, am I really capable of doing this? Like, that's the one mindset. I'm like, how am I able to do, like, go where I'm going? And then I've started working with, my old advisor and current advisor. They started seeing like, okay, well, maybe we need to give him some, train him how to go up, be more independent, work for other people, and how to have this supervisor role. Well, I look at it as, maybe, it's a challenge, of course. Like I always have to have the mindset of being 2, 3 steps ahead of the student, and then, have something planned out for them when they come in.
Hmm.
Some days I might say, well, I don't have anything for you, but my door is always open. So you can always come in. You can just do you need a schoolwork or something, or you just need a vent to me because
Hmm.
I've been there like you.
Hmm.
It's difficult, it's challenging, but I always try and make a fun atmosphere. So
Hmm.
I try and make it like, show research is not fun, boring. Like when some people hear the term research, they're like, oh my gosh, this is numbers. It's a very, frantic place. But I try and make it fun. I give them firsthand experience of meeting a participant, analyzing like, data analysis, and maybe looking at like, okay, is this good data, is this bad data? And we work together like as a team, because research is not an I, it's a
Hmm.
we. So he actually, he was working with me on my dissertation before the virus, and unfortunately we had to stop. But I know, I'm fortunate that he got accepted into PT school, and that actually makes me know that I did my job well, that he's on to the next thing, he's wanting to do what he actually likes to do.
Yeah. And Ben, like as I said, the last show in this is, you sharing your insight and perspective is so helpful, I think, to so many. But I understand Mark's question is, specifically asking to, to you in regards to being a person on the spectrum. But I think your response to that question could be helpful to not just a person on the spectrum in a TA role. It's any TA or any manager, right, of a business or an organization or just managing people. You just described exactly what a neurotypical individual has to process and go through in a ways to manage, whether it's students, classes, or other individuals their age or younger or older, right? So, and the reason I say that is because, look, this isn't about, I know I've talked to the people listening. I've said, we're having Ben, this exercise professional with autism. And I think that's it. It's not Ben, per se, autistic Ben, who's an exercise professional. No, he is a person first, the autism second. And what you're sharing, what you're telling people, telling the world is, yes, some of the challenges you've overcome, but it's no different than in many ways it's not different than what I have to manage my day-to-day stuff, whether or my team, right? You're still experiencing those same challenges whether you have autism or not, if that makes sense.
Correct, it's very correct, because they've seen me on my good days, they've seen me on my bad days. And the big thing I always tell them is I expect the best. And there's no such thing as a stupid question.
Yeah.
And always ask questions, like I always do. And sometimes, make the person stop asking, like leave me alone, like enough question, like. But that's what I want from my students. I want them to be, the next better person than me, because I see better insights. Because for his project, I got him to doing classes looking at the Apple Watch during how it measures accurately wheelchair movement.
Yeah. So we have one more question and then I'm going to sign off. But one individual, Joey, asked, what made you get into the kinesiology field?
It's a very good question. So it's kind of like a double dip into it. So one, I worked in high school a lot, and I used to work with college teams a lot. But
Mhm.
then I also had the area that during my sophomore year, my no, my junior 2010, my favorite uncle passed away with a massive heart attack, and it was
Mm,
at 56. And
mm,
in our family tree, we are known to have high blood pressure. Most of the males all have a cardiac event before 60.
mm.
So, like in my family, my dad's side, I'm like the really first to really promote exercise, be active, and be aware of this because I don't want to end up in that same caveat. So then I was like, well, maybe there's a way that I like measurement of activity. We have them in these devices. So how can I actually tie this all in? And there's a field of it. So I was like, it actually makes sense because technology and health is the where the future is going, and it's taking a multidisciplinary area, and I find that this is the perfect area to be in.
Ben, you said a few minutes ago, sometimes we have good days and bad days. And I will tell you that these last 2 Mondays have been some of my best talking with you. And so I thank you for that. I thank you for sharing your story. And I obviously wish you all the best. And I know we'll stay in touch. Um, but before I end off, too, I think clearly you're a leader for your family. I know this is I was watching some of the messages come in from your family and people watching and listening to your story, and I know it impacted them. So, and to be a leader in your family of wanting to make a difference, because what you just said about your uncle, um, incredible. But you're also an inspiration for those with autism, and I have no doubt that you are going to be making a big impact on the exercise community, whether or not that is specific to research in those with autism or not. I know you will. So I wish you the best. Let's stay in touch. And if any of you listening have questions, you can definitely email us, and we can put you in contact with Ben, or send your messages to my YouTube channel, which is David Geslack, my full name. But we will talk with you soon. And again, Ben, have a great day, and please keep me posted. And again, thank you for everything.
Thank you for having me, and it was a privilege having this great opportunity.
All right. We'll talk to you soon. Have a good day, everyone.